Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really significant story, the controversy around Daystar TV.
Yeah, specifically the dramatic exit of its leader, Joni Lamb.
Right, and how it all seemed to ignite after that investigative report by Julie Roy. It's this collision of big ministry, big money, and some pretty tough journalism.
It really is. And Daystar, you have to remember, wasn't just some small operation. Marcus and Joni Lamb built it into one of the biggest Christian TV networks globally. Huge reach.
Millions of viewers.
Exactly. And after Marcus passed away, Joni became that constant presence. She really represented continuity and faith for so many people watching.
So her leaving suddenly, that wasn't just a quiet retirement announcement.
No, not at all. It felt like a shockwave, particularly within the faith community. It was major news.
Okay, so our mission today is to kind of unpack the sources we have on this, look at why she left, the financial stuff that came up, and this whole debate it sparked about faith, money, and accountability.
Let's get into it.
So that announcement, the sources really paint a picture of shock. People felt like the network had, I think the phrase was hit hard.
Yeah, it didn't have the feeling of a planned transition, more like something sudden, maybe forced.
And the timing is crucial here, right?
Absolutely crucial. Her departure announcement came just days after Julie Roy published this really detailed, maybe bombshell is the right word, report.
A bombshell report questioning Daystar's finances.
Finances and, critically, the leadership's integrity. It shows how, decades of a carefully managed public image can just crumble under one well-researched piece.
And the reaction, it split right down the middle, didn't it?
Instantly. You had critics saying, see, Roy's story obviously hit a nerve. This proves it was true.
Right.
But then her supporters, they jumped in immediately. Their line was she was stepping down to protect the ministry, to keep it from being, quote, distracted.
Distracted by the scrutiny.
Right. Framing the scrutiny itself as the problem, not the potential issues Roy raised.
What made Roy's report so potent, though? Why wasn't it just dismissed?
Well, her credibility was key. Julie Roy has a reputation for really thorough work, for digging up documents, backing up her claims. It makes her hard to just brush off as, like, noise or an attack.
She wasn't just making accusations without evidence.
Exactly. And she often frames her work, interestingly, as being motivated by her own faith, emphasizing that truth and financial responsibility, they aren't optional. They're, like, essential to honoring God.
So for some people, she became this figure demanding accountability within the church itself.
Yeah, a voice for people maybe feeling let down by other ministries in the past.
Okay, let's get to the heart of it then. The financial claims. What exactly eroded that trust? It seems to center on, well, luxury spending.
That's right. The lightning rod, the main symbol, became the private jet, or jets, really.
Right. How did Joni Lamb defend that? Because that's always a tough look for a ministry.
Her defense was essentially practical. She argued it was necessary for the ministry's global work. Flying commercial, she claimed, just wasn't always feasible for, quote, world broadcasting, getting places quickly, meeting schedules.
Okay, you can sort of see the logic if you're running a huge international operation. Efficiency matters.
You can see the argument, but critics immediately jumped on it.
Because
it sounded so much like the justifications used by televangelists for decades. It blurred that line between what's genuinely needed for the mission and what's just, well, personal luxury.
it becomes a symbol of being out of touch.
Exactly. That jet became the major red flag. It suggested a lifestyle more like a CEO than, a servant leader, which is often the image projected. It felt like a contradiction.
An aesthetic failure, as you said earlier, almost as much as an ethical one.
Precisely.
But the financial questions went deeper than just the jet, right? Roy's investigation looked at how donations were actually handled.
Yes, and this is where it gets really painful to read about in the sources.
What do you mean?
It focused on the vulnerability of the donors. The sources mentioned that many donors were, old or having a hard time with money, people who were giving sacrificially.
Giving more than they could really afford.
Far more sometimes.
Right.
And often motivated by this planting seeds theology.
The idea that if you give money to the ministry, God will multiply it back to you.
Exactly. And the report included this absolutely heartbreaking story. A woman using a small line of credit, like borrowing money, to donate because a presenter promised God would give it back 10 times over.
Wow.
That kind of story, it just cuts through everything. It weaponizes sincere faith for fundraising.
And when those details came out,
The trust just fractured. People started asking, wait, is my donation, my kindness actually supporting the ministry's work? Or is it funding this extravagance?
that's a devastating question for a donor to have.
It is. And once that seed of doubt is planted, especially about where your money is going when you gave it in faith, it's incredibly hard to rebuild that trust. Maybe impossible for some.
So this whole thing became more than just finances. It really evolved into this clash between two very strong women.
Yeah, two driven women representing really different ideas about authority, truth, and responsibility.
How so?
Yeah.
Explain that contrast.
Well, look at their approaches. Julie Roy operates as a reporter. Her whole framework is built on journalistic ethics. Find the proof, get the documents, demand accountability. It's external, objective, fact-based.
Seeking truth through evidence.
Right. Her goal is accountability almost regardless of the fight out for the organization itself.
Okay, and Joni Lamb.
Her authority stemmed from her role as a spiritual leader, the face of the ministry. Her tools weren't documents necessarily, but testimonies based on religion and emotional connection.
More about faith and feeling.
And when the accusations hit, her defense wasn't primarily financial rebuttal. It was to frame it as a spiritual fight. She suggested the attacks weren't about money, but were an assault on God's work itself.
So two totally different battlegrounds.
Completely. And that created this incredibly polarized reaction among viewers and the wider community.
How did people see Roy's work in that light?
Her supporters saw her as a force for good, a voice of justice. Some even used terms like modern-day prophet, arguing she was doing the necessary, painful work of exposing potential corruption within the church. Correction, not division.
But Lamb supporters saw her very differently.
Oh, absolutely. They saw her methods as destructive, designed specifically to bring down church leaders. They argued she was sowing division and hurting the faith of ordinary people who relied on Daystar.
It's fascinating how the same actions can be interpreted in such opposite ways.
And what makes it even more intense, maybe more tragic, is the sources suggest both women genuinely believed they were right.
Both sincere in their motivations.
It seems so. Roy felt a responsibility to the truth, to the donors. Lamb felt a responsibility to her ministry, her calling, her viewers. And that conviction on both sides, coming from such different ethical places, one journalistic, one faith-based, just poured fuel on the fire.
Okay, so let's talk about the fallout. This loss of trust. What did it actually mean for the average viewer, for the ministry's future? It sounds like a real crisis of faith.
It absolutely was. For many viewers, that gap just became too wide to ignore.
The gap between the message and the reality.
Exactly. The tension between the values preached on air every day, service, humility, sacrifice, and this apparent way of life behind the scenes, symbolized by the jets and the luxury, it became irreconcilable for some.
And did Daystar's response help or hurt when people started asking questions?
According to the sources, it often hurt. The responses were described as passionate, yes, but also often vague, defensive. They seem to leave more questions unanswered.
Which just feeds suspicion, right, if you're not being open.
People assume you have something to hide. That lack of clear, transparent answers just deepened the mistrust for many.
This whole episode seems to have opened up much bigger questions for the wider Christian community, too.
Definitely. It forces a conversation, often an uncomfortable one, about leadership and wealth. How is it that leaders who preach humility can live like stars instead of servants, as one source put it?
Yeah.
And how big should these religious organizations get? Does extreme wealth eventually become an obstacle to the actual mission?
And who holds them accountable? Is it the media, like Roy? Should it be internal boards? Or is it ultimately, as some argue, only God?
Those are the huge questions this whole situation brought to the surface. Was Roy a necessary truth teller or a divisive force? People still debate that fiercely.
So, looking ahead for Daystar, the challenge seems immense. It's not just financial, is it?
No, the financial hit from viewers potentially stopping donations is real, but the deeper challenge is spiritual. It's about rebuilding a reputation for integrity in an age where transparency, or at least the appearance of it, is demanded. Honesty is expected, instantly verifiable honesty.
It's a tough road back.
A very tough road.
So if we zoom out, what's the enduring lesson here?
I think the core lesson is about trust and transparency. The scandal was this painful public demonstration that even in insulated worlds like religious broadcasting, the truth about finances, about lifestyle, it tends to come out eventually.
And trust, once broken,
It's incredibly fragile, especially when there's a mismatch, when words and deeds don't match up, as the saying goes. That disconnect is fatal to credibility.
It feels like the Daystar story isn't just about one leader or one network. It taps into that ongoing struggle within religious institutions, right, between the high spiritual ideals and, well, the very human flaws and temptations of the people in charge.
Absolutely. It highlights the difficulty of managing vast resources and maintaining humility and focus on the original mission. It felt less like a modern digital age scandal and more like a failure of an older model, the legacy TV ministry, to adapt to new expectations of openness.
So, the final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. When trust is shattered like this, especially over money and transparency, what does genuine repair look like? It can't just be excuses or spiritual justifications, can it? It seems to require a real demonstrable shift towards honesty and accountability. But what does that actually mean in practice? Does Daystar or any organization in this spot need to, say, open its books completely to an independent, maybe even secular auditor? Or is some kind of internal spiritual renewal enough for its core audience? What level of concrete, verifiable transparency is actually needed to satisfy donors and viewers today?